Hi everyone, I'm Angelo. I've been homeless for almost 11 months now, and I'm a filmmaker in Los Angeles. And I've been thinking about why people object so much when you criticize Christianity, and just how repugnant and repulsive and chauvinistic Christians can be about their religion. It's not enough that they practice it, they believe in it. No, they think something's wrong with you, something's disordered with you if you don't believe it. I read a little bit of the Bible the other day for the first time in a while as research for a video, and I was literally laughing at how ridiculous what I was reading was, and not at the passages themselves, but how anyone can believe that this is nonfiction, that this is actually from God, that God wrote the perfect book, and it's this corny crap that is just so utterly banal and mundane. And not only that, the translation I have, it's like, this is obviously written by a person. First of all, we have many examples of books written by people. Every book was written by a person. And this one, oh no, we gotta believe this one God wrote. And people just instinctively, and I get it because I was like that too, growing up brainwashed, but didn't know it. Because it doesn't feel like brainwashing when you're in it. You think that's what the world is. Why does God need people to be insulated from other points of view? I don't get it. Why is that so dangerous for him? If it's as obvious, I mean, if it's as true as the theory of gravity, how is it not as clear if you show other theories of God, other guesses, hypotheses, other religious beliefs, that this particular God is the right one? And I was laughing partly at, like, this is Old English, so, you know, comes from a tradition of where it was translated from, and also it helps that gives a little bit of a mysterious feel, I guess. I mean, for me, it's just it's a nothing. It is a, you know, it's an obscure book that doesn't need to be mentioned, except for the literary and historical you know, understanding that having of it, you know, kind of gives you an understanding of the world that we have today. You know, references, I mean, how would you know what Jacob's ladder means, Adam and Eve, Noah's flood, all these mythological stories? And to the credit of the schools I went to when I was young, they did teach other mythologies too, and that kind of made me question too. It's like, well, how do we know Buddhism isn't real? I don't think we were explicitly taught much about Buddhism, but I was interested in it as a kid, and I always loved Buddhist art and the oranges and reds, and I was just so compelled to it compared to like the ugly, hideous medieval Christian art that it's just scary, creepy. I never thought it looked good just on an aesthetic level. I always loved the glowing, warm sort of feel of Buddhism. Not that I could be a Buddhist either. I can't. Like, there were like maybe 2 times I never even seriously considered, but I vaguely thought, well, what if I just was a part of it? And I was like, no, I can't be a part of any group. I can't be a part of any big tradition or practice. It's just not me. I can't do it. And I was thinking how much Christianity has wreaked havoc in my life. And I'm actually glad in a way that it has. It still churns up a lot of pain. It's very painful, and there are still Christians who will tell me I just trying to pursue the wrong God. So how would they know? How chauvinistic can you be? Oh, I've had all my life, or basically since I stopped being a Christian about 17 years ago, half my life, I'm 34, to think about this, but they're like, no, you just went to the wrong God. Now, what does that mean? Which one? Now, if you say you ate the wrong food and that's why you feel sick, you can point out a food you ate. But how would they know before they have any information you picked the wrong God? Like, oh, my mistake. I went for the vengeful, hateful one. I didn't understand. Oh, I was actually looking up Thor. I don't know if Thor's necessarily a vengeful, hateful God, but I'm just saying, oh, I was looking for that one and thinking that was the Christian God. Oh, you actually found the Christian God. My mistake. That's how chauvinistic Christians are. They think I wasn't also trying to find this mysterious, ethereal, imaginary, non-existent God. And if I was really just pursuing the wrong God, they always say, oh, no, you were looking for the Catholic God, not the Christian one. Although I was raised in a Greek Orthodox church and I went to Catholic schools, also a little Methodist church in there as well. Although I didn't even understand what Protestantism was for years and years. I thought, oh, well, if there's Roman Catholic and Greek Orthodox, I guess they're just Methodist Catholic, right? Like, I thought it was all just one religion and just different languages or something, or different practices. But no, I was told, oh, no, that's different. Protestants are different. Greek Orthodox is different. Thank goodness I was not quite in that club. So I got to skip out on some stuff. What the fuck is wrong with those people? Trying to indoctrinate children into something they can't possibly believe and getting them to think, you do this one thing, and you will be tortured forever. And that's fair. And I was reading some of the Bible and I was like, what the fuck relevance does this have for anybody? How in any way does this help you be a good person? You know, you want to read a good book, read Jackie Chan's autobiography. That's a fun one. That's got lessons for your life. And just entertainment. It'll make you laugh. It'll move you. I don't know how much of it exactly is true or not. You know, you never know with these stories, especially of celebrities. I don't read a ton of books, obviously. I'm reading books on screenwriting mainly lately. Coffee Break Screenwriter, that's a good one. Pilar Alessandra, shout out. It has nothing to do with being a good person. It only seems to be this wish fulfillment in that people don't like the idea of dying and being gone. It's so obviously this ancient, ignorant belief system that's not even coherent. Why would God take, if you believe the Bible, supposedly there was 4,000 years before Jesus and Christianity, why would it take 4,000 years to finally establish the religion you meant to establish? Why would you have a second religion? Did the other religion not work well? What the hell was the problem? And all of a sudden, like now, that's what I remember thinking that, you know, well, why have this old religion for so long? Why have Judaism for so long? As if it isn't obviously just, you know, a religion that was of the time, that was tribal, that was like any other religion. In a way, I mean, obviously there are differences in religions, but it was just a mythology that people came to believe in, and it gave them traditions and stuff. Like, why isn't it like any other religion? Oh, no. It took God 4,000 years, and all those poor lost people who never got to see Christianity until oh shit, there's a giant spider. Fuck that. I had this camera on a tree. So why didn't God just make it easier for other people to be around for Christianity? Why take so, what was the preparation for? Why was there any need for this long, and the long preparing was essentially cobbling a bunch of fake stories, mythological stories about Noah's flood and Adam and Eve, which we know didn't happen. The Exodus, all this stuff. There's some things in the Bible that are historical, but or have some basis in history. There obviously was a Roman Empire. We don't know if there was a person named Jesus. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe that was an amalgamation of a bunch of people. But to create a religion, then say, okay, now I can have the real one. And you know that because a couple dozen books were compiled over thousands of years by a bunch of ignorant men who are deciding which ones you need. And to understand that there are certain prophecies in the old ones which are fulfilled in the new ones. That's just sales psychology. That is not anything supernatural. What is supernatural about that? People claim that their reason for belief, that thinking this is true, is eyewitness testimonies to Jesus, to being willing to be punished for their beliefs. Back when Christianity was a small cult, that's it. So in other words, you're not putting your faith in God, you're putting your faith in other people. Why can't God make it any clearer than some old, you know, not irrelevant book? Why is it that Christians say now, look, you see the proof of God in things like, you know, God of the gaps. That's mainly the argument. Intelligent design. There's no way for organisms to evolve into other organisms, so God had to patch the gaps in there. Why? So people didn't know about those things for thousands of years. Essentially, in the last century and a half, 2 centuries, that people have really discovered stuff about genetics, about speciation, about evolution, medicine, physics, astronomy. Why did God, if that's how you think faith is actually justifiable on a rational basis, first of all, so the Bible's incorrect when it says faith is a virtue, that it's better to believe and not see? So that's incorrect, right? So you don't believe the Bible. But also, why would God wait about 2,000 years for Christians to have any evidence that their faith is actually supposedly rational? And I never use that word really. Can be arrived at with reason. Why would God wait so long? And what would that mean for people who believed in God 1900 years ago? So they didn't have that same justification. So for them, was their faith unjustified? And it's only finally with you, okay, now, yes, God waited 1900 or 2000 years to make it clear with scientific inquiry that actually we can arrive at faith in God through reason. So why would God wait that long to give evidence for his own existence? Makes no sense. And like I said, so all those people throughout history, they had no reason. So your faith has been transmitted by people who were utterly ignorant and had no reason to believe. But now finally you have reason to believe. Is this not exactly what the world would look like if there was no God? And if what Christianity would look like if there was no God? By all means, hey, if you want to be an atheist, read the Bible. Not really. Don't even waste your time. Oh my goodness, you can read better books. I don't even say read it ironically. Just fuck it. I mean, again, good literary, you should know the world around you. But it's not even that good. People say, oh, it's got beautiful poetry. Yeah, look at all the passages where ut began L and L begat this person. And how would we reliably have any stories of Jesus when there's apparently no accounts of people who actually knew him? There are stories written decades after the fact by anonymous authors, and we have no reason to corroborate them. They all contradict each other for the most part, not entirely. Some try to correct errors in others. There have been additions to them over the centuries. There have been changes, things taken away from them over the centuries with copies handed down throughout history. You try writing a story about someone with stories you heard about somebody who lived 30 years ago, and no knowledge, virtually no knowledge of medicine, of history, of scientific inquiry, of physics, chemistry. See how good a job you do. That seems implausible. How much do you know about any random person who may have done great work 30 years ago, or who died 30 years ago, or 70 years, or 50 years ago, really? Makes no sense. Oh yeah, the faith, the apostles were all martyrs, so they really believed what they did. And so you put your faith in them. So just to be clear, you don't put your faith in God. You put your faith in God's supposed other followers. Well, which followers? And people ask, well, what if you're wrong? Always the threat of a really powerful person inflicting a lot of punishment on you. Well, that depends which version of God I'm wrong about. Just like with you, right? Depends which version of the Christian God you're wrong about. Depends which version of the Muslim God you're wrong about. I know it's essentially sort of the same God, and same with Judaism, but it depends. Christians say, well, some of them have said that they believe in it. I've seen this written. I've heard them testify to it. I believe I've used this point myself to say why I believed in Christianity, even though I couldn't really believe in it. I didn't, because I didn't even understand what it was. You cannot, there's no comprehensible understanding of what Christianity is, because it's different for every person. It's totally synthetic. It's made up. It's a whole cloth fabrication. The point that those people and myself have made is, well, this is the oldest, or one of the oldest institutions in the world, Christianity, or Catholicism, specifically. Some Catholics say this. It's been practiced for thousands of years. So again, you're not putting your faith in God, you're putting your faith in all those people. You think they got it right. If you're putting your faith in a 2,000-year-old tradition, which by the way also has constantly changed because you're not practicing the way they did that long ago. There have been many changes to the religion since then. Big things added, so many practices added. Confession was not a part of the early church for a long time. So many different types of prayers were not, that are now a big deal. Talk like Donald Trump, very popular, these prayers. Big things, big, beautiful practices. Apparently 2,000-year-old religious traditions are good enough for you, but if things that people practiced for a long time ago, why don't you use medicine from 2,000 years ago? Why don't you live the way people did 2,000 years ago as far as their medicines, their construction, like housing, their clothing, their modes of travel, their modes of communication? Virtually none. I mean, just speaking, and some people could write, not many. The type of labor they had. Why is that all not good enough for you? Oh, it's just the old religion that's good enough for you. Why? And this is the most selfish, narcissistic, hypocritical, juvenile point about so much of Christianity. Oh, God made the world perfectly for us. Well, that's only if it's good for you. You can say that. Is that so great for people who are suffering, who won't live another day, who wish for nothing more than to be reprieved, for political prisoners who are tortured, who are raped, who are beaten, starved, crippled, permanently injured, blinded? Did the world work out so great for them that God made it just for them? This tiny bit of the world, of the whole universe, meaning when I say world, that's what I mean, that's habitable only under certain conditions that we must constantly maintain, as far as how much water we have, how we maintain our health, how much we eat, how we expose ourselves to conditions that aren't too hot or too cold, because there's a very narrow range of temperatures we can tolerate and live in. And oh, how nice for you that you got to live that. How do you explain it? Oh, that's different. That's sin. Well, supposedly, you're commanded to give up your whole life to God. Jesus did. Jesus was sinless, blameless, whatever that means. I don't believe in any such thing as a perfect person. You're commanded to follow him, and if you do, you should hate your brother. That's what Jesus said, supposedly. I don't think he actually said that. Or if he did, so what? Why wouldn't you do that? Abandon your whole family. It's good to sacrifice for God. It's good to deny the senses, to not inflame your passions, because remember, those are all temptations which lead you to temporal, mundane pleasures, which make you block out God in your life, whatever that means. The older I get, the more nonsensical that seems, and I can't believe how much of my life I wasted trying to get that, and it's just never working. Oh, but Angelo, you just went for the wrong God. This is how arrogant Christians are. They think that people like me are just so stupid. Oh, we just picked the wrong God. Which one? The one there. You should have went for that one there. Where is this elusive God? Nowhere. It's a non-existent God. They say that they believe in God, but what do they actually practice? Maybe a tiny bit of prayer every week, maybe an hour in church. Other than that, they inflame their passions. They live in a world of mundane pleasures. And if you really thought, like every decision you make now is like casting out a line into the universe that will alter your trajectory forever, how could they not be in constant panic and feeling like they're dead at any moment? Because that's what I felt like when I was in the deepest grips of my insanity, which was that God was destroying me and that it's like I was being sheared away. It was absolute torture. I cannot convey what it's like, because even now, I don't want to remember. I was getting this feeling a little bit. It was this morning, just feeling like I was being sheared away, gone forever, and that I had no free will. whatsoever. And this is how I was getting to the point of when I was still Christian, or ostensibly Christian, and in the spell of this mental illness. I was constantly losing my ability to really kind of choose anything for myself. It was painful just to have to decide anything for myself, to study for school, to eat, to watch TV, to watch movies. It was getting so painful because I was literally just losing it. I don't know how to describe it. It's like being on the worst hallucinogens and being drunk. You Christians are just so arrogant, who say, oh no, it's just the wrong God. You went for the wrong God. You should have went for the right one, the loving one. That's exactly what I don't want. That was the God I thought that I was trying to get. I don't even know what that means because it makes no sense. There is no such thing. You can't define a God. Nobody can define what supernatural is. I've never seen a coherent explanation of supernatural that doesn't immediately break down. You can only essentially believe in God when you already assume the God to be true. So just assume it. Just believe it and leave other people alone. No, that's not enough. They want theocracy, especially in America. They want to convert people. They want to ban abortion, essentially creating more dead people who cannot end their pregnancies. They want to ban birth control. They want to maintain white supremacy. They want to destroy schools in order to teach basically a dogmatic Christian and white supremacy, where the world's only existed for 6,000 years. God's going to come and end the world, bring the rapture. We should all look forward to it. No reason to think for tomorrow. A thought for tomorrow, save not, spend not, do not the birds in the field get taken care of, and how much more are you worth than a bird? Although they don't really teach that. That's the thing. You Christians, you're hypocrites. You don't really believe in your God because you live like atheists and Satanists. You live for your own senses. You fuck when you want. You do what you want. You spend money when you want. Oh, just here's a little sacrifice. How nice for me. You essentially believe in a kind of pagan God that rewards and punishes for behavior that's pleasing to that God. That's nothing new. Those types of gods have been in people's minds for thousands and thousands of years, possibly since human beings have ever been around and they tried to understand, how the world works, what the mountains are, what it means when there's a storm, what it means when a volcano erupts, when someone dies, not knowing what disease is, not knowing, what poisonous food is, being constantly terrified of the elements, not knowing, how plant life came about, animal life came about. Not knowing what death is. So Christians say, oh, they believe, but yet what are they willing to practice? If God is the greatest thing in the universe, do they spend all their time praising God? No. Apparently their God's not good enough. So for clarification, you Christians aren't willing to give your God everything, are you? You're willing to torture and inflict incredible cruelty on others, especially for whatever reason, gay people, transgender people, LGBTQ people in general, people with disabilities you kind of look down on, black people, brown people. A lot of you Christians seem to hate them. Arabs, Muslims, other Christians, Jews. A lot of you fucking hate everybody. Oh, but we love you. See, I care about you. That's always the excuse they give. Yes, I condemn the sin and love the sinner because I care about you. And so, what do they actually practice? Are they actually that faithful? No, they're God. Just for clarification, you're not all praising God all day, right? You're concerned with your mundane life, but what could that possibly compare to eternity if you actually believe in that? If you actually believe there's a God who's worth sacrificing everything for, who the martyrs gave their lives for, why aren't you willing to? Why aren't you willing to turn over everything, even your own free will, put yourself in such a state of fanaticism and hysteria that you cannot even choose for yourself what you do? That's the point I was getting to, and I was not even fanatical or anything. I just had mental illness. But are you willing to do that? No. You want your life. Oh, no, please don't make me be, don't suggest I'm not pious. No, I live my life. I do what I want. I work the job I want. I want taking the entertainment I want. But you're just this wretch that God needs to save. when there's obviously no God. Just look at anything about history and how history is written. Look at how the Bible was put together. Even in the Bible, you will see it written in the front. We don't know who the real authors of the Gospels are. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are just names, basically, people picked. And how can they teach sick things like sex is wrong here in your life, here, all the way up to when you get married, now it's okay. So what was obscene and sick and will get you sent to hell before, now all of a sudden is okay? Well, if you really believe that, how can you be okay with it after marriage? It's the exact same act, the same activity. Oh, God said it's okay. See, God favored me. Oh, those other people, the clerics, the priests, what? Oh, they have to sacrifice more. God wanted them to. It's okay. No. I can do what I want. I can fuck who I want. But other people, oh, they have to suffer more. That's too bad for them. Oh, I feel such compassion for them. It's just too bad you and your God aren't willing to do a damn thing to alleviate people's conditions. There are Christian people who, you know, work with charities and stuff. To them, I say, yeah, it's good work. Why do they bother? I wouldn't want to stop them from doing their work. What I would want them to stop doing is stop trying to preach, proselytize, stop creating a culture where people are looked down upon as somehow unworthy, as heathens, as lesser than, as sick sinners, as disordered, as lacking the good news. Because if you're really willing to say, if you really believe in God and the Christian God, why aren't you giving everything about your whole life to God? What possible benefit could there be for a few moments of pleasure watching TV or being with friends or on Twitter or eating food or what, when you could give everything to God? Isn't that the best social network in the universe? You could talk to God all the time. Oh, but too bad for you, too bad for other people. They don't get to live another day. They grow up being beaten. They grow up in war zones. They grow up in poisoned areas that Christians have helped destroy with pollution, with sewage, with wars. We just bombed a wedding in Afghanistan. Oops, oh well, God knows his own. Good for me that I grew up in an area that doesn't have to be destroyed under a regime with theocratic auspices, which is what America has. A lot of what's in the military, and especially the White House, is this belief in white Christian supremacy, which gives justification for our wars, essentially crusades, that in a way have never really stopped. And that so many people, even a lot of atheists, continue to perpetuate because they buy into these regressive ideas of patriarchy and white male dominance. And, you know, all of us are in a way complicit in one level or another. And that I certainly was supporting when I was, you know, a young conservative Christian. Why would you need to inflict any of that on kids? Can't they figure out God's there? Or why does it take so long and so much careful training to get them to learn this stuff, when if God's as real as the ground I'm standing on or the wind blowing through here, why can't God just do a better job teaching people about who he is? Why do you insist that God made the world just for us when there's so many people in such desperate misery? The answer of, oh, evil is caused by the devil and rebellion and stuff, it doesn't answer it. Because either God's mysterious or he's not. If God's ways are mysterious, and you say, oh, you were blessed, well, why couldn't God do that to other people? And how can you say, in my case, that, oh, you just didn't try hard enough? Oh, well, too bad for you. You have to actually... How can anyone believe that it would be better for me to try and do something I can't? I cannot be Christian. I cannot believe in it. It doesn't matter. I can do it no more than I can be a Muslim or be Jewish or be Buddhist or anything else, or have any other belief system other than what I do now, except to say that what I do now is always try and learn and, you know, change and understand more about how the world works and how to treat others. Why would you say knowing that I went through such torture for years and years. I didn't really touch on it in this video, but basically I was having panic attacks and absolute terror, constant, 24/7, that God was ripping me out of my body to be with him. And what it meant was I was losing all desires, all ability to function. It got to a point where I was disabled for 9 months and I couldn't even drive. And I was literally losing my free will, like literally losing my ability to choose things, because I could not have forethought. That separate question of whether free will exists, I'm kind of thinking, nah, not really, but we have no choice but to believe it, to paraphrase Christopher Hitchens. Or it's always a paradox. What is free will? We can't really prove it, can we? Because we have no outside frame of reference for it. But how can you really believe, oh, well, that's too bad. You should actually practice Christianity again, even if it makes you so insane to the point of you will be disabled and die. Oh, but it's good for me. God, see, that's the world God created. God created some people so sick that they could never be near him. Oh, but I can. God's good for me. And what does being near him mean? Fuck who I want, eat what I want, do what I want, and just God's there. Who knows what it means? Because it means nothing. It's an imaginary construction that people invented to aggrandize themselves and to prostrate themselves before. To say that, oh, God granted me all this stuff, but I'm a sick wretch. I didn't deserve it. So it's like in an abusive relationship. You're never quite sure where you stand with the person, because they may be really kind and supportive one moment, and that same person will turn around on you and be monstrous another. So you're never really sure, are you on offense or on defense? It's always a way of saying, well, you can't doubt it, because if you're doubting, that's evil. That's another good trick they use. Oh, if you doubt, that's actually wrong. That you'll get punished for that. So there's no way out of it. What would you Christians do with people who cannot believe, or like me, if I were to try and embrace, I just can't, but if I were to try to back years ago and I was getting so sick that I was incapable of functioning, was it really worth it for me to keep trying, just because, even though it was destroying my life? And how is it not incredibly narcissistic and self-aggrandizing that you don't have to deal with that? Oh, but other people do. Too bad for you, Angelo. Ha! You have to deal with that. God's good to me. Keep going, though. Good luck. And how could you be blamed in a way? Because, hey, you're fanatics. There's no way around this system. It's the ultimate tyrant that controls the whole universe, from which there is no escape. You can't even escape if you want to. You can't die and get away from it if you want to. This is a disgusting idea. It's a profanity. It's an excuse to say you're lesser than, you're a wretch, you're sick. I will transmit to you what's right. Oh, but don't blame me for bringing the message. It's not me through my power, it's God's. But meanwhile, I'm going to exert my power right now. And if you believe God truly controls everything and made everything, how could you accept anything I say about my own experience? You would have no choice but to be this arrogant, selfish person saying, well, actually, God made things right, so obviously you're wrong, Angelo. You did something wrong, or you're just unwell, you're disordered, it's just sickness, it's too bad for you. Ha! Good enough for me. So even though I'm an atheist, I'm so glad that I've renounced religion, and that it only seems more and more in the background every day and more ridiculous as I live more life. There's always that anguish and conflict in me that I grew up with this thing grafted on me so much. And I'm glad for it in a way, not for all the pain it's caused, but the visions of darkness and just terror that it's caused me, absolute terror. If you think Christianity is so good, why don't you go through terror for God? Why not? Why not live through it? What could it possibly compare to an eternity in paradise? I'm glad in a way that I could see my own life become a testimony and a witness against this cruel, fabricated religion. This system of cruelty and indoctrination that's just meant to perpetuate itself. There's no real benefit to it. If you could actually say Christianity is good, or it's about being a good person, or you need to believe in God to be a good person, which even many Christians will admit you don't need to do that. There are ones who say, well, if you don't believe in God, how could you not kill and steal and, you know, do all kinds of horrible crimes? All they're really saying is, they're acting like you don't have the decision, even if you're a Christian, of doing terrible things all the time. Well, do not Christians also have to choose at any given moment to heed their fears about punishment if they want to do something bad? If they want to hurt someone else or steal or whatever the case? Yeah, they do. So what's the difference for them and anybody else? All they're saying is they believe somebody really, really powerful is going to inflict a lot of pain at some point later on, unless they also just say, oh, I'm sorry. And not even necessarily sorry, just believe in God. So hey, Stalin, Hitler, all they had to do was just ask forgiveness and hey, they're good to go. The person who masturbated once, not just, let's be honest, let's be more realistic than that. They're going to hell unless they're sorry for it. Huh, okay. And what are you all saying? Because an atheist who doesn't necessarily believe that there's any kind of punishment and reward for people once they're dead, that therefore it's not true? Why? Because it's unsatisfactory? So, in other words, it doesn't sit well with you, so it can't be true? And if Christians really believe that the threat of punishment and hell keeps people from behaving badly, why is that Christians engage in so many of the same things that they supposedly call sinful that non-Christians do? Or atheists or not people who don't identify as religious do? Premarital sex, masturbation, use of birth control, homosexual relationships, whatever else you want to call, you know, sinful. I mean, greed, idolatry, whatever the fuck idolatry is. Why is it that those don't seem to happen any less with Christians? And why don't Christians brag, instead of bragging about the stuff that's like, you know, easy to avoid because it's so heinous and hurtful for most people to deal with, like murder or even stealing? Why not talk about the things that don't seem readily, you know, bad to, say, most people, but Christians say are bad, like pornography or masturbation? Why not say, look, Christians don't masturbate because they're so in such terror of hell at any given moment that they refuse to do something against their conscience? Why don't you say that? Oh, you hypocrites don't. So in other words, to you, the biggest accomplishment of Christianity is that it instills in people a fear of doing things that for many people, like it's in us, it's in our nervous system to not do, like kill or hurt others, because it scares us, it evokes fear in us, it will make us feel terrible afterwards to live with the guilt and shame of it. And by the way, you're saying, well, what if we don't do that? What are you saying? There's this ironclad system that just perfects people now, that will force them to behave well all their lives? Or do not they have to choose in any given moment? Because don't we live in a world right now where people have to choose at any given moment how they're going to behave and how they're going to treat others? Oh, yeah, we do. Well, we live in that world that you're saying is like a hypothetical right now, where people do horrible things, where they do commit atrocities and kill and assault and rape, and they create horrible institutions like prisons, white supremacy. They already do those things. Nationalism, xenophobia. So why are you acting like that's some hypothetical? They never finish that thought. Never. And that's what you expect from Christians. You know, they can't think. They're not honest people. They're liars and cowards. If they really wanted to confront their convictions with sincerity, they would say, okay, I will give over everything, my entire being, to God. What could it possibly benefit you to date someone, to get married? How could you have room in your life for that if you're truly giving everything to God? You can't. You're a liar. You're a hypocrite.